Admiral
And then
Gallaudet, I'm going
Senator
to
Kane.
quote from the Defense Department's 2022 National Defense Strategy concerns about China. The most, quote, the most comprehensive and serious challenge to the United States national security is PRC's coercive and increasingly aggressive endeavor to refashion the Indo-Pacific region and the international system to suit its interests and authoritarian preferences, end of quote. Do you agree with the Pentagon that China is a greater threat to national security than climate change?
Thank you, Member Grassley. I do agree. I believe that China is a greater threat and is imposing more significant costs than climate change by orders of magnitude. And you can see it everywhere we look. They're buying land near U.S. military bases. Their surveillance balloons have been invading our airspace. They are challenging our allies and challenging us all around the world, especially in the Indo-Pacific, through unsafe, assertive, provocative military activities. And their Navy, as I said, has eclipsed our U.S. Navy as being the largest in the world. And they're also doing significant environmental harm to our allies by destroying coral reefs in the South China Sea. And their illegal fishing, which is a global phenomenon, is just undermining the blue economies of our partners and allies. So yes, China is absolutely more of a greater threat. And I think we know that they are going to invade Taiwan in the near future. And that's the threat we should be talking about here.
Admiral, to you also, not only are you the only climate scientist testifying today, you've served as the oceanographer of the Navy and head of NOAA. Those are jobs where you have to follow scientific evidence and not ideology, because lives are often at stake. So question, in your view, how credible are the assertions that climate change is going to increase the frequency of extreme weather events like typhoons and hurricanes? And do you see much scientific evidence supporting the claim?
Thank you, Senator Grassley. I think we need to be more precise in the way we talk about extreme events caused by climate change. For example, as you stated, typhoons and hurricanes, there's been no upward or downward trend since 1980 worldwide. Now, some models do point to increasing intensification of those storms in the end of the century, but those are often models using extreme emission scenarios, as I said in my statement. And in terms of attribution science, the National Academies of Science 2016 report, they ranked with very low confidence being able to attribute tropical cyclones or any one given tropical cyclone to climate change. And that includes the Tyndall Air Force Base hurricane, Hurricane Michael, that destroyed that facility, as well as the Typhoon Mawar that caused damage on Guam. And I think also there's another point we should talk about, and that's wildfires. Looking at the data from the National Interagency Wildfire Center, there's been no change in the trend of wildfires since 1980. And I think another more important problem when we talk about wildfires is the fact that you really can't decouple easily, if at all, the other causal factors for wildfire frequency throughout the U.S., and that's things like land management and forest management practices.
And Ms. Edelin, accordingly to official sources, China has a defense budget of $230 billion, but like many statistics published by the country's communist government, the numbers are very suspect. How much do you estimate China is really spending on its military? How does this compare to what the U.S. is spending on defense?
Thank you, Ranking Member Grassley. So the American intelligence community about a year ago stated that China spends about $700 billion on its defense budget, but with no more information was provided. So at AEI, we tried to recreate as best we could our own assessment and came up with a number at least 3 times as large as what the Chinese Communist Party puts out through its state media annually, as you noted, at $230 billion. It's using conservative estimates, at least $711 billion, for including many things that we would include, for example, in our defense budget that Beijing does not, for example, military research and development, space activities, rocket forces, for many paramilitary organizations as well, Coast Guard, maritime militias, People's Armed Police. When you add all of these things up and account for some other adjustments and exchanges and purchasing power parity, it's easily at par with the United States budget for 2022. We estimate 96% of our own budget in size.
Senator Grassley, if I may, there's an old Russian proverb that says, "Shoot the wolf closest to the sleigh." Well, this sleigh of national security that the United States has is surrounded by a lot of wolves or threats. And the problem that we can get in trying to compare a threat like China, for example, big and growing, or what is going on with Russia and Ukraine and what is happening in the Middle East, is that they are so urgent that they can take our attention and our resources away from threats that are even greater, but they're just not as urgent. So we need to balance the urgent against the important in the longer term.